There was a lull in fighting over the winter of 1812–13 while both the Russians and the French rebuilt their forces. Napoleon was able to field 350,000 troops. Heartened by France's loss in Russia, Prussia joined with Austria, Sweden, Russia, Great Britain, Spain, and Portugal in a new coalition. Napoleon assumed command in Germany and inflicted a series of defeats on the coalition, culminating in the Battle of Dresden in August 1813. Despite these successes, the numbers continued to mount against Napoleon, and the French army was pinned down by a force twice its size and lost at the Battle of Leipzig. This was by far the largest battle of the Napoleonic Wars and cost more than 90,000 casualties in total. The Allies offered peace terms in the Frankfurt Proposals in November 1813. Napoleon would remain as Emperor of the French, but it would be reduced to its natural frontiers. That meant that France could retain control of Belgium, Savoy and the Rhineland, the west bank of the Rhine River, while giving up control of all the rest, including all of Spain and the Netherlands, and most of Italy and Germany. Metternich told Napoleon these were the best terms the Allies were likely to offer. After further victories, the terms would be harsher and harsher. Metternich's motivation was to maintain France as a balance against Russian threats while ending the highly destabilizing series of wars. Napoleon, expecting to win the war, delayed too long and lost this opportunity. By December the Allies had withdrawn the offer. When his back was to the wall in 1814, he tried to reopen peace negotiations on the basis of accepting the Frankfurt Proposals. The Allies now had new, harsher terms that included the retreat of France to its 1791 boundaries, which meant the loss of Belgium. But Napoleon would remain emperor. However, he rejected the term. The British wanted Napoleon permanently removed, and they prevailed. Though Napoleon adamantly refused, Napoleon withdrew into France. His army reduced to 70,000 soldiers and little cavalry. He faced more than 3 times as many allied troops. Joseph Bonaparte, Napoleon's older brother, abdicated as King of Spain on 13 December 1813 and assumed the title of Lieutenant General to save the collapsing empire. The French were surrounded. British armies pressed from the south, and other coalition forces positioned to attack from the German states. By the middle of January 1814, the coalition had already entered France's borders and launched a 2-pronged attack on Paris, with Prussia entering from the north, and Austria from the east, marching out of the capitulated Swiss Confederation. The French Empire, however, would not go down so easily. Napoleon launched a series of victories in the 6 Days campaign, while they repulsed the coalition forces and delayed the capture of Paris by at least a full month. These were not significant enough to turn the tide. The coalitionaries camped on the outskirts of the capital on the 29th of March. A day later, they advanced onto the demoralized soldiers protecting the city. Joseph Bonaparte led a final battle at the gates of Paris. They were greatly outnumbered, as 30,000 French soldiers were pitted against a combined coalition force that was 5 times greater than theirs. They were defeated, and Joseph retreated out of the city. The leaders of Paris surrendered to the coalition on the last day of March 1814. On the 1st of April, Alexander addressed the Senate conservator, long docile to Napoleon. Under Talleyrand's prodding, it had turned against him. Alexander told the Senate that the Allies were fighting against Napoleon, not France, and they were prepared to offer honorable peace terms if Napoleon were removed from power. The next day, the Senate passed the Acte de Déchéance de l'Emperor's Demise Act, which declared Napoleon deposed. Napoleon had advanced as far as Fontainebleau when he learned that Paris had fallen. When Napoleon proposed the army march on the capital, his senior officers and marshals mutinied. On the 4th of April, led by Ney, the senior officers confronted Napoleon. When Napoleon asserted the army would follow him, Ney replied the army would follow its generals, while the ordinary soldiers and regimental officers wanted to fight on. The senior commanders were unwilling to continue. Without any senior officers or marshals, any prospective invasion of Paris would have been impossible. Bowing to the inevitable, on the 4th of April Napoleon abdicated in favor of his son, with Marie-Louise as regent. However, the Allies refused to accept this under prodding from Alexander, who feared that Napoleon might find an excuse to retake the throne. Napoleon was then forced to announce his unconditional abdication only 2 days later. In his farewell address to the soldiers of Old Guard in the 20th of April, Napoleon said, "Soldiers of my Old Guard, I have come to bid you farewell. For 20 years you have accompanied me faithfully on the paths of honor and glory. With men like you, our cause was not lost. But the war would have dragged on interminably, and it would have been a civil war. So I am sacrificing our interests to those of our country. Do not lament my fate. If I have agreed to live on, it is to serve our glory. I wish to write the history of the great deeds we have done together. Farewell, my children." Uddharan Chinh.